The Rambam is saying that, you're celebrating Yom Tov. Simcha shel mitzvah. It's only your mitzvah? It's not the Ger's mitzvah, it's not the Yosem's mitzvah, it's not the Almona's mitzvah. Because how can you sit, right, and feast and saying, this is a Simcha shel mitzvah? You're doing it the same Shema, the same mitzvah. What about them? But they don't have a mitzvah. So if you don't involve them in the process, says the Rambam, that shows that it's just a pretense. Really, your kavanah is self-indulgence, and it's an excuse. It's Pesach, it's Shavuos, it's Sukkot. Says, but if you include them, and you say that it's a mitzvah, so of course I have to include them. It's not just my mitzvah. Right? So then, it's a simcha shel mitzvah. That's what the Rambam puts it here. In other words, that your inclusion of the unfortunate demonstrates what your intention was, what your kavanah was. But in Hilchos Purim, he puts a different spin on it. The next Rambam, famous Rambam, Mutav la'adam la'harbos matanos evyonim la'harbos b'shudasu b'shluach manos l'reyav. It is better for a person to increase the matanos l'evyonim, the gifts he gives to the poor, rather than an abundance of food and shalach manos to his friends. She'ein sham simcha gedoyla u'mufayara el l'sameach leiv aniyim v'yisayimim v'almanos v'geirim. There is no greater or more glorious simcha than to gladden the hearts of the poor and of the orphans and of the widows and of the geirim. She'hamasameach leiv ha'amlolim ha'elu. If a person gladdens the hearts of these unfortunate people, doima l'shchina. That person resembles the Shechina, the divine presence. Shenemar, as it says about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lahachyos ruach shcholim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lowers himself to inject life into the spirit of the lowly, lahachyos leiv nitkoyim, and to bring back to life the hearts of those who are crushed. A different vod. It's not a question of kavanah. It's a different simcha. What is the greatest simcha? The greatest simcha is to bring happiness to another person. And if you do that, you're doimah to the Shechina. So the question of Footner asked is that l'chara, whatever the Rambam said in Hilchos Yom Tov, is equally applicable to Purim. In other words, if you don't include the poor in the Suda, then it's not Simcha Shel Mitzvah, it's merely Simchas Kreiso. So why does the Rambam, when it comes to Purim, put a different spin on it? The idea here is that not just whether you include the poor, that shows whether your kavanah is l'shem mitzvah or not. More than that, the greatest simcha is to give happiness to another person. So Footner said, because that really is what Purim is all about. So you have to understand what the Jews were going through at this time. You see, hindsight has 20/20 vision. When we look back over the course of Jewish history, we see and understand the cyclical pattern of Jewish history. The Jews do well, there's a Churban, there's a Galus, there's a restoration, you come back, the Churban Bayis Rishon, Galus Bavel, the Bayis Sheni is built, Churban Bayis Sheni, another Galus, Mashiach will come. Because we understand the nature of this cyclical pattern. But for the people that lived through the Churban Bayis Rishon, it seemed to be that this was the end of the Jewish enterprise. Ad Kedei Kach, that the Medrash says, the Ramban brings this Medrash in Masechah Shabbos, that the people came to the Navi Yecheskel, and they said, Rabbeinu Yecheskel, Rabbeinu Yecheskel, we have the right to become like the Gentiles, to give the Torah. Because Eved Shemachra Rabbo, the Isha Shegir Shabayla, if you have a servant whose master sold him, or a woman whose husband has divorced her, Klum Yesh Zel Zeklum, can the master have any claim to the service of the servant? Can the husband have any claim to the service of the wife? There's been a sale, there's been a divorce. The bond has been severed. So likewise, what tviyah, what claim does the Kadosh Baruch Hu have for our allegiance? He's cut us off. That's how they viewed the Churban. That to them, the Churban was like a divorce.
Yeah, they knew the Mashiach was coming, or they had a Torah like us.
How do we know Mashiach is coming? We have the Nevi'im. We have the Nevi'im, but this is before the Nevi'im. Right? They held it was it. We're written off. That's what the Navi Yecheskel came and explained to them that it's not so. But this is what they thought. This is what they felt. So Kadosh Baruch Hu had to demonstrate his love for them. And that really was the Purim story. The Purim story was the demonstration of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love. Now, the problem with this is this, that how does the Purim story demonstrate HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love in a greater way than the Yetzias Mitzrayim does? Because we know there's some fundamental differences. The Yetzias Mitzrayim involved Nisim Geluyim. The Purim story involves Nisim Nistarim. So the question is that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to demonstrate his love for Klal Yisrael, we would think that what is a greater demonstration of love? A Nes Nigla or a Nes Nister? A revealed miracle, or something which is very, very hidden, something that can be almost written off as being natural. What would you say?
Well, I would have said the big show is but on the other hand, the point you made earlier is one is saving from oppression, the other is saving life.
Good. That's true. That's true. We were saved from greater danger. But the question is, but the means. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring it about in such a unremarkable way? Let me share with you a Gemara. What do you think shed some light on this? The Gemara Masechet Shabbos tells the story. There was once a man who didn't have money. His wife had died, leaving a baby, and he had no money to hire a wet nurse. So there's a problem. What's the baby going to eat? So the Gemara says a nace happened, and the man grew breasts, and he was able to nurse the child. So looking at this story, there was a machlekes Amoraim. Some Amoraim said, how great is this person that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle for him. And Rabbi said, "Kama garua adam zeh." How low is this person? Shenishtan lo sidvei breishis. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the whole natural way of creation to solve his problem. So what's the machlokes? We all would say that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu made an open miracle for this person, it's a great thing. So Tzaddok actually explains this. Tzaddok says like this. He says that for a person who is valued in God's eyes, he already is planning in advance and laying the groundwork for this person's salvation. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu really would have liked this fellow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have arranged for him a parnasa, a job, money in the bank, with which he could hire a wet nurse in the normal way. But this is a person that up until the very last moment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did nothing for him. When he finally was painted into the corner, totally desperate, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, a miracle, he will grow breasts and nurse the child himself. So Abaya said, Kamu Guru Adam said. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu could not, or did not do anything for him until it was so desperate that the only way to solve the problem is this unusual miracle. You see, all the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim are really like that. Imagine we're standing at the Yam Suf, the ocean is in front of us, Paro is behind us. We're mamish at the moment of desperation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a miracle of Kriyas Yam Suf. So in a way, it's a dazzling miracle. But on the other hand, like, until we were mamish with our backs up against the wall, there was nothing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do for us. I mean, he didn't care enough about us to prevent us from falling into the situation. The amazing thing about the Purim story is that when the miracle happened and everything fell into place, it was clear that this was a consequence of groundwork that had been laid over a period of 9 years. Because the miracle of Purim takes place in the 12th year of Achashverosh's reign. The story begins in the 3rd year of his reign. That means that the groundwork was laid over a period of 9 years. And therefore, that's the idea that the Yidden said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares about us. It's not just when our backs are up against the wall, HaKadosh Baruch Hu pulls a stunt. But the whole time, unbeknownst to us, he has been scheming and planning and working and arranging so that when we would need the salvation, everything necessary would be in place. That is the sign of tremendous love. What is the sign of the love of a husband for his wife? The occasional grand gesture? Or is it willingness to go to work every day, to hold down a job, maybe a job which is menial, but it provides for the family? And what is the sign of the love of a wife for her husband? Right, the willingness, I mean, to quote Fiddler on the Roof, for 25 years I cooked for you. If that's not love, what is, right? Forgive the, can't resist. But that is love. Love is the willingness to, you're always on my mind. I'm always thinking about you. I'm always working, I'm always planning, I'm always scheming, I'm thinking years in advance. You're going to need this 5 years from now. I have to start saving money for that. Right? I mean, my father's a kind of rock. Told me an amazing thing. My brother and I were born after many years of marriage. My brother, who's older, was born, my parents were married 14 years before he was born. I was born 3 years later. So my father said that before my brother was born, he was very irresponsible with money. What was the point? What was he saving it for? So he spent. When my brother was born, I guess when he knew that my brother would be born, so then he started saving. I inherited the irresponsible side. Didn't inherit that. But the point is that that's the idea. If you love someone, you care about someone, it's not just, I got to make a chasna. How am I going to come up with the money? You're planning and you're saving and you're scheming and you're arranging. That's the care. That's the concern. So I'm saying, in that sense, that's the whole Purim story. It's more than the nisim of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The nisim of Yetzias Mitzrayim are, our backs against the wall. Like the Baruch takes out his magic wand and it's a miracle. Right? But here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is planning and planning and planning and laying the groundwork so that when Haman comes up, years from now, everything will be in place to frustrate his plans. That's a tremendous love. That means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was thinking about us the whole time. Right? That's Merayim. That uplifts a person. That elevates a person. Right? When a person feels that I'm so precious to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we are so precious to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not just when we're in trouble HaKadosh Baruch Hu intervenes, but that he's been working and planning and laying the groundwork to help us should such a crisis arise. That's really the expression of love on the part of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And if Rafutner says that that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did on Purim, he uplifted us, and therefore we likewise have to do the same, and that's why the Simcha Mefu'ara, the glorious Simcha Purim, is the extent to which we uplift others. And that's why it's so crass. When I was a bacher, I think Baruch Hashem in our own yeshiva, we managed to rise above that. But when I was a bacher, there was such an inyan on Purim that, I'll get drunk, I'll tell this guy off. Or I'll tell that Rebbe off. This is my excuse. I'll really be able to give it to him. Such a corruption. The shikrus should be the opportunity to say things to people that you're uplifting things to people that you're too embarrassed to say otherwise. It's difficult for people, especially men, I think, to talk to one another and say how meaningful you are to me, how important you are to me. But if you can do that because you have an excuse, you have a little bit too much to drink, and now your tongue is loosened, that's a beautiful thing. It's not only the Yisayimim and the Almanas and that need to be uplifted. Everybody needs to be uplifted. I'm the Rosh Yeshiva. You don't think I enjoy it when someone comes to me and says, I really enjoy that shit? I'm a human being too. Rabbi Breitowitz used to say that he was in the Beis Medrash and he heard two Bachrim talking and learning, and one said, Rabbi Chaim sagt azoy geschmack. Rabbi Chaim says so good. So it's after a moment I realized that they were talking about Rabbi Chaim Brisker, not me. But for the moment that I thought they were talking about me, it warmed my heart. So when the Rambam says that that's the Simcha Mufu'ara, it's true that Yisayimim and Almanas certainly need it, but everybody needs it. Your own children need it. How often do we tell our children how precious they are to us? So if you can't, so at least Purim, you can. But that's the idea, and that is simcha. That's the greatest joy, to know you are important, that you are valuable, that someone is match of you, that you are meaningful to another person's life. You're meaningful, of course, to the honest life, it's the ultimate simcha. But now that we've said this, we can turn to two little pieces in your Tzaddok. And I think now we're ready to hear them. To hear a Chassidus Shemaimer, it isn't just something with intellect. You have to be in the state of heart to hear it. So we'll learn. I don't know how much time we'll have. We'll start with the first. And this is in the Sefer Divrei Sefer. It's like this. Yesh Yeshua. Well, this we can translate, but I think that we'll all hear it now. Yesh Yeshua, there is a salvation. Shakadosh Baruch Hu motzio mishikuo legamri. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes a person out of the place in which he is sunk entirely. You have a person who's sunk. He's in a blotter. He's in the mud. He's sunk in the mud. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes him out of there. And that's one type of salvation. He's totally removed. V'zeh ge'ulas Mitzrayim. That is the redemption, of course, from Mitzrayim. Shotziyonu mimentes sharei tumah legamri. HaKadosh Baruch Hu removed us from the lowest level of tumah, the 49th gate of tumah. Shiyatzonu me'avdos l'cheirus. And we emerge from servitude to freedom. U'me'afela l'orgo. From darkness to great light. U'me'atem, from that moment onward, avdei Hashem v'lo avdei paro. We are called Avadim of Hashem and not Avdei Paro. This is the Gemara. The Gemara says that why is it we don't recite Hallel on Purim? We recite Hallel on Pesach, why not on Purim? So the Gemara says, because it says in the Hallel that Hallelu Avdei Hashem, that the servants of Hashem say Hallel. So the Gemara darshans Avdei Hashem v'lo Avdei Paro. You only can say Hallel now that you're totally free. You're no longer a servant of Paro. But for the Purim story, even after the salvation, Akate Avdei Achashverosh Hanan, we're still enslaved to Achashverosh. We were saved from Misa. We were still subjects of Achashverosh. So therefore, we can't say Hallel. But Vayetzias Mitzrayim was complete. Ki kvar yatzanu mishikua zed Mitzrayim. Now this is on the national level.
What about Hanukkah?
We'll say there's two types. B'Chanukah,
Yeah.
Chanukah Fakir. The Rambam says B'Chanukah makes the point that we established the Malchus from the Chashmonaim, that we did become independent. Now, whether historically there are problems with that is a question maybe we'll have to deal with Chanukah, but the Rambam holds that they were able to establish an independent dynasty by the story of Chanukah.